Mr. Jacklich, good morning there, son. What's going on today?
Good morning. Well, it's raining here, and it's kind of stormy. Wherever here is, I'm coming to you live from the global mobile secret headquarters of gold ball hunting somewhere in the Western Hemisphere.
Global and mobile. Well, cool. Yeah, no, I know that you're up there. You've got now you have your new office, or not your new office, but your new studio, which is inside your, as you mentioned earlier, we were trying to start this session, and I screwed it up, but inside the canned ham.
Inside the canned ham, yeah.
Which is, reminds me, and we were chatting about this, reminds me of the canned hams where you get the metal key to peel back the top.
Yeah.
Which is just like the old tennis ball can.
Yes.
And come on, man, share that story that you told me before we were recording. This is going to be reality truth bomb right here.
Reality.
I know
right?
Everyone thinks that this Jeff Jacklich guy, smooth, cool, my God, Hollywood. Yeah. He's just, squeaky clean, blah blah blah.
As pure as the driven snow, right? well, maybe not that far.
Yeah, that's sort of the look, but. Something happened back there in the 80s or something?
Yeah, the can, right? So, in the late 80s, I was 18. Yeah, 78. I was 18 years old. And so we're still using the tennis ball tin can. And originally you had, the key like you described, and you would, like a can of sardines, you would open up the ribbon around the edge. And then you had the little snap lid, right? Remember that, right?
Yeah, and then you had to make sure there was a big stack of Band-Aids around because...
Yeah, you were just lacerated by the time you got done with it. And then they flipped, the tin can was still there with I think the pop lid was next before they went to the plastic tube with the pop lid, right? So playing the national amateur circuit down the South, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, all that... down there, the drinking age was 18 for the lower alcohol content beer, the 3.2 beer, right? So at these events in the evenings, that's when they would hold mixed doubles, and you would get a partner once you got down to the event. And so in the evenings, it was always, under the lights and hot, muggy conditions. And so we would take the empty tins and go into the bar or the lounge at whatever club we were at, and get a draft beer and then head out to the court so that no one knew we had, draft beer out there with us in the evenings playing mixed in these national events. And I got to tell you, there was some spectacular shot making going on because everybody was pretty loose and just winging it, So anyway, that's a little bit of the stories, one little story there from, back in the day.
Well, that's a good one. I've got a beer story, but maybe we'll reserve that one for another time. Actually, it was a beer story in relation to winning a gold ball, but we'll do that one another time. Maybe
I want to hear that.
Okay,
sometime.
We'll do that next time, maybe. So, Jeff, today I'm going to put you in the hot seat, man. I think it's your turn. Maybe not. Maybe it's my turn, but what the heck.
What the heck?
I'm gonna lead off with a question for you, and this is, I think, you could actually answer it both ways. I've got to remember to edit this out. So,
when you say answer both ways, honestly and dishonestly, is that the two ways, or what do you mean?
Yeah, I'd like us to try to figure out which is truthful and which is a lie. No, so I didn't quite phrase that correctly. But as a player and as a coach, one of the things we have to do as players and one of the things you have to do as a coach, and you can take it either way from the player and or coach first, but I'd like to hear both sides. We're trying to create automation in our strokes.
Yeah.
Right. So, but yet sometimes we need to tinker. We need to be conscious of how to eventually get the feeling that we want for a certain shot, a certain stroke technique. How did you, or how do you help others go from that thing where we're consciously manufacturing stroke technique
Right.
to flipping or eventually transferring. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Trying to go to that spot where now it's automation. It's automatic. You don't have to manufacture it.
Right.
You don't have to go, okay, we'll turn racket here. Now's the time to drop a
Yeah.
contact point, all that kind of stuff. So it's not like a checklist. How do you get the automation process to where it's a no-brainer?
Great question. The process is not it's not fast. It's a slow, gradual process, and we got to go through the mechanics. We got to understand some of the basic mechanics of what's going on. We don't need to get micromanage it, though. I don't think. For me, the key that gets us from the mechanics to automation, like you're describing, is what preparation slot do we have to turn and get into that the body now wants to uncoil naturally, that kinetic chain just wants to work the way we're designed, not the theory of the stroke, you got to lengthen, you got to pronate, you got to do all this stuff, but literally the body basically wants to coil and uncoil in a certain fashion. Mechanically it works a certain way. And so, in golf, I know a lot of players call it the slot. When they turn and they get that club in the backswing, there's a slot. And I play a little bit of golf, and there is a slot that when you hit it, when you get the club and everything into the slot, the swing seems automatic. It just seems natural. There's no forces fighting any other forces. And in tennis is, I believe, it's the exact same thing. The challenge and the work is finding and working the slot. Like, where is that for you? Not again what it is for Roger, what it is for Rafa, what it is for Serena. Those are great players to emulate, and there's great mechanics and watching them hit the ball. There's great things that we can glean from their stroke technique and their movement and all that great stuff. But we're all different. We're all physically different sized. Arm length, elbow to wrist is a different length than me to you, Brent. So mechanically, we're going to work slightly differently. But it doesn't mean we can't be both striving to kind of get into the same slot that again, the body now is going to work a certain, automatically a certain way. So that's where, understanding, having the right coach to get you into certain positions that allow you to discover the mechanic in much more of an implicit way than an explicit way. Explicit being, hyper-mechanical, and implicit being, here's some exercises. I'm going to hand toss the ball into this area after I put you into this position, and now all of a sudden it just seems natural to brush up on the ball and all the other magical words that we use. And again, I'm not saying we don't have to be mechanical. We do. We have to. At some point we got to get in there and wrench it a little bit. But I think too much time is spent wrenching, and not enough time doing implicit exercises where we're allowing the student to discover the feel of what it's like to have their kinetic chain work and have the stroke and the feel of the ball and the strings, and be in that state of mind where they can actually pay attention to it. Because if you're in a mechanical mode, discovering feel is very difficult because we're mechanically producing this whole stroke start to finish.
So do you at some point, once you've given them, and you've got a great term for it, the framework, and they start to, with some underhand feeds, they start to produce the stroke the way that maybe they give you some feedback that says, yeah, that one felt right, or that seems right. Then at some point, do you try to help them stop thinking and start trusting that if you'll put yourself into the slot, that it's all there. Now you can just let it come out, so that they can, once they start playing matches, it's no longer about the mechanics. It's no longer about anything other than maybe just feeling, am I in the slot?
Right.
And
Because that is that is the feel. The feel is I know for me, when I make that turn and into that that preparation framework, I know then if I'm on it or not.
right.
And I'm sure you have the same experience. And I think any player could describe it that way. That once they're in the slot, in their prep framework, whatever however terminology you want to use, that the stroke just seems natural. You also have this sensibility that you have access to the ball. When we're not in the right framework to actually execute,
That's good. That's good. Wait a minute. Hold on. Have access to the ball. I got to write that down. Go ahead.
So what that means is that when you're in the right framework, and you can actually produce the stroke from your kinetic chain athletically. The ball always seems like it's available to hit. You always feel like you have access to it at the contact point. When the framework is not produced quick enough, or we're out of the slot a little bit, all of a sudden access to the ball can feel restrictive. And that's when we have to compensate at that point. We can't adapt. We have to compensate.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm thinking about when you said have access to the ball, when you said getting into the framework, and then everything is. I mean, when you get into the right framework, which for me, when I'm returning serve in doubles, there is that, I think, that instinct that you've got the service partner there, which means that unlike in singles, you've got a much more narrow lane available to you to be able to play your return. In a spot that, and I know we don't like to use the term keep away,
right?
But still, I'm trying to make sure that I'm putting myself into this slot. I've got this framework that as soon as I recognize the serve's coming to my right or it's coming to my left, that what I keep reminding myself of as that toss goes up is shoulders, turn. And if I'll remind myself of that, then number one, what happens is I stop thinking about the guy up there at net, the server's partner, and but I don't feel like I'm sort of manufacturing my return. I just feel like it's an important cue for me to make sure that I really get turned. And as you said, it puts you in that position where all the other stuff you don't have to think about. And the other thing you just said that I wrote down, which I think is brilliant, is it now gives me access to the ball in a way that I can go back cross court if that's what I want. I'm
right.
naturally set up to go there. And if I'm too concerned, or if I'm distracted by other stuff, or I'm thinking about the score, or I'm thinking about that jerk a couple of courts down who's screaming and yelling after every point, then what happens? There. And I'll bet that I could, if I was to video it and I could measure it, I'll bet you that I wouldn't get into as full a shoulder turn when I'm distracted by something else other than, that toss goes up, I'm just going turn. And it puts me into what you're talking about. And from there, God, it gives me access to the ball.
Right. And that when you feel like you have access to the ball, we stroke much freer, much more confidently, and things tend to work out a little better. So kind of to circle back there, because I don't know if I actually answered it, is like when do you when do you take the student? How do you get them out of that mechanic into that, right? And that's when I transition, and again, I do way more implicit instruction, and then I just start to focus on the framework. So it's a domino effect, right? If I can get the first domino in place, I have a chance. Not that it's actually going to happen, but I have a chance for the second domino to fall correctly, which means now I have the third domino can fall correctly, and down the line, right? So at whatever point that I'm watching as I'm feeding balls and they're hitting, I'm just looking to see how the dominoes fall and kind of going, oh, there it is right there. Okay, so we got to back up because apparently the domino in front of the last one was not, we didn't get that one right. We got the first two steps right, but then something happened. Something happened can be It can be if the initial turn and framework might be spot on, but somewhere between that and the 2 steps out to the ball, the framework broke down, it collapsed. So the framework is good, but now you gotta hold on to it with your life between that point and where you need to set up and hit the ball. And so that becomes then, now that's the next thing I might focus on for them. It's like, okay, you got the turns looking great. But now remember, that is what your brain is using to determine your spacing and the timing, and your footwork is working off of that framework as well. So everything happens in these progressions.
I think the metaphor with what's the one big domino that if you knock it down, all the other things happen. And not I mean off topic in terms of not tennis, but a guy named Tim Ferriss, one of my very favorite podcast guys. And
love him. Yeah.
And he wrote a book called The 4-Hour Work Week, which for a lot of people, they think, well, geez, I mean, maybe you only work 4 hours a week. And he said, no. I mean, he's doing all these things. He's got this podcast, he's got books, he's got speaking. And someone asked him, he said, well, how do you get everything done? And he says, well, I don't really have a to-do list. I might look at a list of all the things I want to get done today, but I pick out the one that if I do this one thing today, a lot of other things just get taken care of automatically. And I think sometimes we don't think in terms of that. Well, what's the one big domino that if we really worked on it, all the other things would probably fall into place? And what you're describing, Jeff, is, let's say for the topspin forehand cross-court standard rally ball that's going to land in the middle of the quadrant over there, right, cross-court, what's the one thing, what's the one big domino that if you knock that domino down, all the other stuff is going to fall into place? And I think you're right that it is the setup.
Right, the prep / framework.
If you get that right, and I think too often we hear terms of, topspin, and we hear terms of swing path, and we hear terms of windshield wiper, and we hear all this stuff that really doesn't have anything to do with what you're talking about, which is if you get yourself into the slot, then you have access to the ball. And once you have access to the ball, all the other stuff just falls away. It just falls into place.
You're in a position of discovery. So then I can ask the student, okay, can you feel what you're doing to the ball right now? And can you tell me what that is? And they can tell me then, yeah, I can feel the strings biting the ball. I can feel that now. Great. We're moving this train along now, because now they've had a moment of not being over consumed with producing mechanically the mechanics, but actually feeling what their body's doing, and then that's where we start to get real data and real feedback to understand how our body mechanics work without, again, being down into the micromanagement of the move.
So at some point, I'm not sure we've answered it yet, but when you finally give them permission, or they give themselves permission, I think a lot of times what happens as a coach is you tell someone, dude, you've got this. You've absolutely got this. You can turn off the assembly line now.
Right.
You're just going to automatically produce it once you're into this position. And yet, a lot of players don't trust themselves. They don't trust that what you're saying is true. They don't trust that if they don't think about it, that their body will automatically do it.
Right.
So how do you help them with that belief, with that trust that they've got it, and it's time to, if they really want to start playing the game, it's time to turn off the manufacturing and be thinking a little bit more tactically, a little bit more strategically, right, knowing that the tool that you have been working on, the topspin forehand, standard rally ball, all right, now how are we going to strategically, tactically use that tool which you don't have
Right.
to manufacture.
Right. So, so from there, like you said, assuming we've gone through all the steps and they they can actually rally fluidly now, right? And they're playing, and for me, then I have to put something in place now for them to focus on, right? So, and that replacement item is going to be, I'm going to teach you some patterns of play that have nothing to do with you trying to win the point. I need you to produce these patterns. I need you to hit every ball into the middle of the ad quadrant. I need you to hit the ball, whether it's a backhand or a forehand, into the middle of the deuce quadrant. And just focus on producing those shots, those patterns into those places. So that we're not bogged down, our ego isn't bogged down with winning, and which is always a huge challenge in this whole tennis journey. Ego and pride love to creep in our little head here, and say, oh my gosh, I just lost the last 3 games. And listen, it's a practice set. Okay, so who cares?
It's a
because
practice set.
Because right now you're not practicing, and this may sound odd to some, but you're not practicing winning right now. You're practicing your pattern work. You're practicing your movement and prep and being able to manage these things under game conditions, because that's what happens when you go play a tournament. It's not Jeff's not there feeding you a ball. Jeff's not there rallying with you, barking out, across the net, prep. Keep it there. Don't give it up. Prep. Don't give it up. Don't give it up. Hold on to it. Hold on to it. Hold on to it. And then they stop and they hit the ball, and there's the forehand. It made it from the middle of the court to the edge of the court because they kept the framework, and now they hit a forehand from the wide position, and it was beautiful. So transitioning that into play, into playtime is those are practice sets, and we have to be very narrow to start with how many things am I practicing today? 1. I mean, literally 1. Here's the pattern I'm going to practice today, and I just can't care whether I win the point or not. I have to be involved and really get in touch with that. What does this feel like to move, prep, and hit a really nice solid ball into that target? Do it again. And who cares if you win the set? Because the point is, we're not practicing winning yet in our practice session.
The other thing that you've talked about a lot before is monitor and adjust. So if we're on the topic of how do you help someone transform themselves from manufacturing over to the no-brainer, non-thinking, trusting, and having belief in that your subconscious, right, that your subconscious can actually produce this stroke, is if you miss it, it's not really a monitor of a stroke technique or a mechanic. Right. It's next time I'm going to take that ball 2 feet higher.
Yeah,
and it's not well, how do I take that ball 2 feet higher?
Right.
It's that's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to play this ball a couple of feet higher.
Right. I'm going to shape the ball a little bit more. Whatever term that floats your boat, whatever that might be. And so that's when you're doing, maybe you're doing 5-10 minutes of some cross-court rallying, right? Just again, as much as we don't want to learn to play catch, there are some, truths about this game that you got to do. You got to do some baseline work, and so you're doing 5 to 10 minutes cross-court rallying. Every ball you hit, you should be monitoring. Wow, you know what? I just hit one ball 3 feet over the net. The last ball was 2 feet over net, or the second ball was 2 feet over the net. The last ball was 1 foot over the net. I'm trending. Okay, let's catch that. Let's make note of that and go, okay, let's go back to 3 feet. And can you make those adjustments on the fly with again good mechanics, right? And so in your rallying, we have to learn how to do it, how to monitor and adjust, how to just recognize, I didn't mean to hit the ball 1 inch over the net. And if I make no adjustment, I'm probably going to dump the next one in the net. So I've got to make some sort of adjustment. And again, that adjustment is simply a thought. It's simply, let's shape this ball, take a little pace off, a little more shape, so I can still hit it deep. And that's the thing, when you're rallying, you're tinkering with that stuff. I mean, even like for you, I know that when you go out there and warm up, on a tournament day, you're paying attention to what does it feel like. not necessarily the mechanics, but like, God, what does that feel like? And then, okay, all right, let's okay, soften up that hand a little bit, and
I was just going to say, I mean, for me, it's when I'm warming up in a tournament match, all I'm doing is feeling the ball.
right.
And if I'm not feeling the ball the way I want to, it's always because there's just too much grip tension.
Right.
So it's
white knuckling the racket, right?
Yeah.
It's like if the racket could cough, it would. If you're
Well,
choking it.
there is
right.
a little dust coming off of the butt cap.
Right.
So, all right, man. Well, listen, this has been good, very good. Guys, if you got something out of this, and I hope you did today, because I sure did, is to do a few things. Number one, we'd like you to just like the video, whatever button is in front of you there. If you're on YouTube or somewhere where you can click a like button, please do that. Share it. We'd love for you to share it and get some more love out there to the players so we can help more players. And then subscribe. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to our channel so you get notified anytime we publish a new episode like this or any kind of new content. And then for sure, if you got any comments or questions, right down below in the comment section. Let us know there. And then, Jeff, we've got a cool thing that we want to give people.
Yeah.
We want to give players, which is a video that you and I did. It's a private video, but it is free, about confidence.
Yep.
How to build it. How do you know when you're starting to get it? I mean, those things are obviously... you got to have confidence if you want to play this game to the best of your ability, day in and day out. And that's really what we talk about in this video. Is that's really the goal. I mean, the goal is I want to be able to trust when I go out tomorrow when I play, because today I felt pretty good. Well, tomorrow I want to be able to trust that that's going to happen again, as opposed to what usually happens. Man, I felt great. I got this tennis thing worked out.
Right.
I got to figure it out. And you got the next day, and it's like, doink off the upright.
Right. Because it's like we've been at this a long time, collectively and individually, and I found this, that you never get to actually own it. You only get to lease it, and occasionally you got to renew the lease. You got to go back to the drawing board. You got to do a little bit more work.
That's
you
good.
got to redefine something, and that. So the minute you kind of have that, I'm there.
I own it. I own it.
Look out, because here it comes, right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
well, hopefully,
where are they gonna find this?
Well, they can do two things here. Right down below the video, there's a link that will take you to goalballhunting.com, or just open up your browser and go to goalballhunting.com. Whether you're on your desktop or your mobile, you can get there. And what'll happen is you will put in a first name, email address. You'll get on our email list. We promise not to spam you. And then you'll get immediate access to this private but free video that Jeff and I recorded a little bit ago. And hopefully what will help you do is make sure that even if you don't own, I've got this tennis thing, at least you've got a long-term lease that's pretty good. So, JJ, wonderful as always, man. Thank you. And guys, get out there and make it a great day.
Woohoo! Can't wait to do it again.
All right, man.